we're going to make a quick start on stitching this suit. First thing we want to do is take away the seaming that's roughly attached to keep these pieces together, providing. Okay, so we're going to quickly just unpick on these rough seamings and pull it apart. Now, I often get asked how long it takes to sew a simple suit. Now, that depends on obviously your expertise, and really, I'll be honest with you, I am out of practice. I have not sewn for the last good few months. The last time I made myself a pair of clothes is probably over 6 months ago. I have not sewn anything since. Even winter, I've been managing with all my old clothes. You get to a certain stage in your life where really the fascination goes as well with clothing. I know some of you may not be able to relate to that, because that's one of the weaknesses for women, is constant new wardrobes. And I assure you, I have been in my wardrobe and I feel like it's lacking, but I have been trying to hold and show restraint and not actually commit myself to making anything more. I have not purchased anything. I've actually avoided even going to shops, because as soon as you go, you sort of like get tempted and roped into buying, which I don't. And often one of the problems that we have is we end up buying, but we end up hoarding it. And I have plenty of hoards, I tell you. There's no point in buying stuff if you're just going to store it and if you're not going to stitch it. And then the other question that we often get asked is, do you not sew for people? I'll be honest with you, now at this moment in time, I feel I don't even have time to sew for myself, never mind sewing for anybody else. Okay, so that's, now the border on this is quite well attached, so I'm not going to bother doing anything to this. The neckline is also decently attached, so we're not going to pull this apart. The sleeve, the lace in front of the sleeves, I am going to pull this off because the sleeves are just a touch bit short for my liking. So I'm going to take this apart and I'm going to attach lace in between them. Or if you don't have lace, if you buy these suits and you haven't got the lace, then you can actually just attach the salwar fabric. Or even if you didn't attach anything, you can actually, this has got, well, I would attach something because I wouldn't want to leave this plain. But what we're going to do is we're going to reattach this back on at the front, and then that should give us adequate length. Now what I've done is I've just located this bit of lace, which I'm going to attach in between and then reattach this back on. Perhaps like this. Or if I do it like this, even if I didn't then attach this on, it would, and that would actually, I think that would give me the length. I need at least 22 inches of sleeve. Yeah, that just gives you just about long enough sleeve length. Now the other thing with these sleeves is the edging is not too perfect, so, and this normally frays away fairly easily, and also a little bit of this edging is a little bit coarse. So what I would do is I would actually put the salwar fabric and line that up with that, so a little bit of the front of the sleeve I get that edging. Or if you're going to unpick, you can do is attach it the other way around and maybe do a scalloped edging just to tack this down to, I mean, the other thing we can do is go that way around. and that way we've got this one, the edging is a lot better than the edging on this, so we would still get the length, and maybe attach it this way around. I would go around with the seam on this so that that is attached to that, and then add the extension, and that way I won't need a further lining underneath this. Okay, so that's now the back of this kameez. There is a piece attached. I am going to unpick this, and I'm going to add the same fabric as the salwar. Now even if I don't add the same fabric as the salwar, what I'll do is I will line the chiffon, because I want a slight bit of a weight to the back of the kameez, and at the moment this doesn't have any weight, and being such a light flimsy fabric, it doesn't give it a very good hanging. So once I've what I'm going to do is I'm going to unpick this, and hopefully just lay everything out and then proceed with the cutting. Now, going back to the question, how long does it take to stitch a fairly simple plain suit? Well, this is with lining, so it's going to take us a little bit longer. Also, it depends on how much experience and how much practice you've had. If you've been into sewing and you've been doing it regularly, then you would do it fairly quickly, you would stitch it fairly quickly. But as I've been out of practice, it is going to take me slightly longer than what it would take me ordinarily. So first of all, I need to get back into practice. Now, one of the things that I always suggest when doing a practice run is actually do it on like a cotton fabric. And I did cut a linen suit out, but do you know what, being so stuck for time, I mean, I've had holidays, and Christmas holidays are real never holidays, because you know, you're always got family or visitors or someone coming down, and also it's the first time I've had really, I have been busy with so many other things that it's the first few weeks that couple of weeks that I've had to myself, so all the grandchildren have been down, and you know, so holidays not really been holiday. You plan so much and very little gets done, unfortunately. Even with videos, I have actually taken a big time out, a big pause, and this is the third time I'm recording, and each time I do a recording I feel conscious, and I don't feel comfortable anymore. I don't think I feel like I don't belong. This is not my ground anymore. So we're gonna have to see if we can get back into it. But anyway, if you see me disappearing, then see, even my words are getting mixed up, honestly. I feel like an idiot standing in front of the camera today. Right, I'm not going to turn it off. I'm going to keep talking. Maybe the knots in my tongue will go out after practice, eh? As long as I don't have to listen to myself. I really wanted to actually sew this up and actually wear it. It's been ages since I've not worn anything new, and I don't feel special anymore. There's nothing quite like wearing a new suit to make you feel special. I remember years ago I did a suit. It was in a winter, and I had the shops at that time, and it was one of my favourite suits. It was in a maroon colour, and it was called Pick Me Up suit, because I was feeling really down. And I remember back in those days, for some reason, I was actually suffering from a very bad depression, and a severe depression can lead you to so many other illnesses. And I used to wonder, why is it that I'm always so ill? You know, I was suffering with constant flus, and you know, now I realise, right, that strain and stress, right, how much of an effect that has on your health. I mean, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, today I feel the most healthiest I've been for a very long time, and stress-free. And it's amazing what stress-free life actually, how much of a health improvement that is. So anyone suffering from depression, and as a secondary to depression, they're suffering from many other ailments, then I would highly recommend getting yourself out of the depression. Because get out of the depression, you will get rid of a lot of the other illnesses. It's actually an onset of other illnesses is depression. And I am so glad that time is over, because I remember going through some severe anxiety and panic attacks and flus and colds, and you know, even if you watch my videos, old videos, you will see me complaining of constant flus and colds that I just could not get rid of. Today, alhamdulillah, I have been the best that for many years. And you know, part of the depression is our constant demanding lifestyle, that we think that if we're going to follow this demanding lifestyle and we're going to gain happiness, and sadly that's far from the truth. So simplicity is the best answer. Follow a simple rule of life and you will be happy and prosperous. You know, aim for little, don't aim for designer names. Now, you know what, if you can, going back to designer names, if you can make something like this at a fraction of the price of an original, then you know what, that's less of wasted money. And if you have got the extra money, then you want to get really out of depression is to give it away in charity, because some of the best most rewarding and health improving facts are being charitable. Alhamdulillah, Islam teaches us so much. If only we had, you know, if we only we educated ourselves into knowing about Islam, we would be far more content and lead a much happier life. And depression, nah. Once you've discovered the purpose of life, depression actually leaves you. Now I'm going to use existing kameez for my measurements. Basically just double folded it, laid it on top of my new kameez. I'm going to make it slightly bit wider. I prefer the wider fitting than actually very fitted kameez now. So we're going to use this as our template. This is where the jah on this are. So I'm going to make it a slightly bit A-line-ish. Okay, and then waistline, I'm going to make it wider, obviously make it wider than this. Just use this as, you know, the guideline. So just give it the basic shape. Shoulder, neckline, this is the front of the kameez. Now the round neckline is already embroidered, so we're just using the shoulder and do it slightly on the outer side of the existing and slightly above the armhole cutting. Very basic, simple. Obviously, if you want a proper tutorial, then follow some of the older videos. These videos are just really pick-me-ups, you know, just inspiring videos that can actually help you along in the cutting and perhaps push you back into sewing, just as it is pushing me back into sewing actually. Now, one of the things often, you know, with round necklines is that or any embroidered necklines, they're not always symmetrical. So what I would suggest is don't cut into the neckline until you've opened it up, but you can use the rest of the cutting, but not actually cut on the neckline itself, because you can end up cutting it slanted, which we want to try and avoid. Now we've taken away the marking for, I'm just going to measure it 14 inches from the top and put a notch in there. That's how much out it was. And sometimes by cutting the neckline you can actually work out now. The length on this kameez is going to be more of an average length. I don't want it too long. Now there is one other slight bit of a problem, that the edges of the kameez are actually going to slightly hang down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put side darts in just to bring that a little bit up, because I've cut it slightly A-line, and now there is, if you can be bothered and put the effort in, I would actually take this bottom off and slightly curve it so that I get more of like a roundish drop at the bottom, because it looks like the edges are going to drag down a little bit. It's not a straightforward. Do you know what? I'm going to straighten this out. I'm not too keen on having this. That's more of a straight kameez then. That looks a lot more shapely. Learn to judge, learn to judge where something looks right, and if it just doesn't look right and you feel that, I mean, sometimes these fabrics have a bit of like a twist in them, and by holding it straight you can actually tell where the twist is. And one of the other ways to actually get that twist out is to actually press. Now you saw that I actually took slightly bit more off from this side, because the twist is more on this side than it is on that side. That's better. I will hold this open. Yeah, the hanging is a lot better. Right, I'm going to take the same one. Now I've taken off the original hanging. This was attached on the border and I've taken that off, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this and make it heavier and then reattach this back. So this is to give the added length, because these are cut on a cross grain, which I'm not really keen on, but unfortunately that's the way that these suits are supplied. Unless I was going back to the designers, I would get them to change the layout of these, you know, suits. Unfortunately, as retailers, we don't really have much input in that. Now, initially I was saying that I was going to come back and do this. Now I'm just continuing cutting because I want to finish off the kameez cutting, and I actually really want to quickly stitch this up as well. I know for a fact that if I actually delay and if I don't get this stitched today, then chances are that I will not get it stitched, and I want to sort of try and get back for the week that I've got left of holidays. I really want to get back into sewing and get a little bit more done before I go back to classes. Now there was one slight bit of a problem with the sleeves, and that was that one, they're coming out slightly short, and two, it will require a little bit of a piece going in the armhole area, because it's one thing that these makers lack on is not supplying enough fabric, which is a bit sad, because, you know, for just a couple of inches of fabric they make us go through so much hassle, and often you can't actually get the exact same material as well. So, you know, now I'm stuck in with this because the sleeves are a slightly lighter colour, and even though I've got fair enough fabric, but this is like the darker green, which is not going to look right. Now for a very thin person I suppose this will be alright, but for me I would just require just half an inch of fabric inside there, just to it's not really much, you know, I don't know, maybe even, no, that's just too less. I'm going to try and locate just a little bit of, if worst comes to worst, I'll just add this. Can you see, it's just enough for seaming. I'm sure I've got some pieces of something or other in this colour. Okay, I'm gonna leave you for now. We're gonna come back with the lining and the salwar for this suit. A very quick cutting of the lining and salwar, and then hopefully get this stitched and give you a little bit of a twirl.